The 87-year cycle. How history keeps repeating itself. They say history repeats itself. But what if I told you there's a pattern? A hidden cycle of 87 years that has shaped the rise and fall of civilizations for the last 2,000 years. From the glory of Rome to the fall of the Soviet Union, from revolutions to world wars, this cycle has defined human history. And right now, we're at the edge of another turning point. The cycle they couldn't break. For thousands of years, history has followed a predictable rhythm. Civilizations rise, fall, and are reborn in an endless cycle of hardship, resilience, prosperity, and eventual decay. Think tanks like the Club of Rome and global elites have studied these cycles extensively, and they believe they've found a way to break the pattern forever, to stop the natural process that would lead to a great awakening. Their plan, a controlled collapse. Instead of letting the cycle play out, they're engineering a crisis ahead of time: economic turmoil, mass surveillance, digital control grids, and an AI-driven system of totalitarian rule. Their goal isn't just power, it's to prevent people from ever waking up, to keep them locked in a permanent state of dependency and control under a technocratic new world order. But here's the problem: it's already backfiring. People are waking up faster than expected. The internet, once a tool for surveillance, has become a weapon against their narrative. The more they push censorship, financial restrictions, and centralized AI control, the more people see the system for what it truly is. So what happens next? If history teaches us anything, it's that no empire, no elite, and no system can suppress human consciousness forever. The cycle always continues, and we're on the brink of another massive shift. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. The pattern that rules history. Let's look at history through this 87-year cycle. Every cycle starts with a period of hardship: wars, economic collapse, or major instability. Out of this crisis, strong leaders emerge, leading to an age of growth and prosperity. But over time, comfort and decadence set in, creating a generation of weak leaders, which eventually leads to collapse, and the cycle repeats. This pattern has repeated itself for centuries, across different civilizations. Rome, the Mongol Empire, the British Empire, and even the modern world follow the same script. Two 2,000 years of the 87-year cycle. First cycle, 087 AD, the rise of Rome. Hard times, civil wars, Rome under turmoil. Strong men, Augustus restores order, builds an empire. Good times, the Pax Romana, peace and prosperity. Weak men, corruption and complacency begin to spread. Economies, 87 to 174 AD, Rome's peak and start of decay. Strong men, emperors like Trajan and Hadrian expand the empire. Weak men, decadence grows, power struggles increase. Third cycle, 174 to 61 AD, crisis of the 3rd century. Hard times, barbarian invasions, economic collapse, plagues. Strong men, Aurelian and Diocletian, try to restore order. Fourth cycle, 261, 348 AD, Rome's last stand. Good times, Constantine strengthens the empire. Weak men, corruption, civil wars, and the slow fall of the West. Fifth cycle, 348 to 435 AD, the fall of Rome. Hard times, Barbarian invasions. Rome falls in 476 AD. Strong men. New leaders rise in the chaotic world. Sixth cycle, 435 to 522 AD. The Dark Ages begin. Hard times. Rome falls in 476 AD. Europe is fragmented. Strong men. The Byzantine Empire and Germanic kingdoms rise. Tenth cycle, 522 to 609 AD. Early medieval period and Byzantine strength. Good times. Justinian restores parts of Rome's glory. Weak men, plagues, corruption, and internal strife weaken empires. Eighth cycle, 609 to 696 AD. Rise of Islam and Byzantine struggles. Hard times. The fall of Persia. Rapid Islamic expansion. Strong men. Charlemagne and Islamic leaders rise to power. Ninth cycle, 696 to 783 AD. Early European kingdoms. Good times. Stability returns. Feudalism strengthens Europe. Weak men. Internal power struggles and Viking raids. Tenth cycle to 870 AD. Viking Age and European chaos. Hard times. Vikings terrorize Europe. Feudal wars increase. Strong men. Alfred the Great. Charlemagne builds stability. Eleventh cycle, 870-97 AD. The medieval resurgence. Good times. Christianity spreads. Economy grows. Universities emerge. Weak men corrupt monarchs and church officials. Twelfth cycle, 957-1144 AD. The Age of Crusades. Hard times. Islamic expansion. Conflict between East and West. Strong men. Knights, kings, and church leaders lead crusades. Thirteenth cycle, 1044-1131 AD. High Middle Ages and prosperity. Good times. Trade and knowledge expand. Cities grow. Weak men, nobles fight among themselves for power. Fourteenth cycle, 1131 to 1218 AD. Mongol invasions and chaos. Hard times. Genghis Khan and Mongol conquests. Strong men. Kings and generals fight back against invaders. Fifteenth cycle, 1218 to 1305 AD. Late Middle Ages. Good times. The Renaissance begins in Italy. Weak men, corruption in the Catholic Church. Sixteenth cycle, 1305 to 1392 AD. The Black Death and collapse. Hard times. Plague kills millions, famine spreads. Strong men. Some rulers restore stability. Seventeenth cycle, 1392 to 1479 AD. The Renaissance and exploration. Good times, art, science, and exploration flourish. Weak men, monarchies become corrupt. Eighteenth cycle, 1479 to 1566 AD. Age of discovery and reformation. Hard times. Religious wars and colonial struggles. Strong men. Conquistadors, reformers, and rulers reshape history. Nineteenth cycle, 1566 to 1653 AD. Rise of empires and war. Good times. Scientific revolutions, colonization grows. Weak men, weak rulers cause revolts and civil wars. '20th cycle, 1653 to 1740 AD. The Enlightenment and Revolution. Hard times, revolutions, wars, and new ideologies. Strong men, Napoleon, Washington, and other leaders reshape nations. '21st cycle, 1740 to 1827 AD. Industrial Revolution and European domination. Good times. Massive economic and technological progress. Weak men, corruption, and greed increase. '22nd cycle, 1827 to 1940 AD. The Age of Empires and Decline. Hard times. Economic crashes, rising political tensions. Strong men. Reformers and industrialists rebuild society. '23rd cycle, 1940-2001 AD. World Wars and Globalization. Hard times. 2 world wars. Cold War. Economic crises. Strong men. Churchill, Roosevelt, and others lead in crisis. Good times. Post-World War economic boom. Weak men. Corrupt politicians. Declining morals. '24th cycle, 2000-2088 AD. The Great Reset. Hard times. Economic instability. Global conflict. Declining trust. Strong men. A new generation of leaders may emerge to rebuild. Where are we now? So where are we right now in the cycle? The last major turning point was around the 1930s, 1940s. World War II, the Great Depression, and the rise of strong leaders who rebuilt the world. That was about 87 years ago. Since then, we've gone through an age of prosperity, but also increasing decadence. We've seen weak leadership, financial instability, and growing conflicts. Are we now entering another period of hard times? What happens next? If history follows the cycle, we may be heading toward another period of chaos and collapse. But that also means a new generation of strong leaders will emerge. This could be the time when a new empire rises, old powers fade, and the world reshapes itself once again. So the real question is, will you be ready? Will you be part of the weak men who watch the world burn, or the strong men who rebuild it? Conclusion. Now that you know about the 87-year cycle, what do you think? Are we on the edge of a great collapse or a new beginning? History repeats itself, but this time you can see it coming.